Well, hello everyone, Ethereal here, and I usually don't really make talk videos around here, and I used to a while ago, but I kind of stopped in favor of doing guides. But I felt like what we're going to talk about in this video is so interesting that I felt like it justified me to kind of just make a video. And maybe if things go well, I might consider making more videos on these types of topic about Genshin in the long run. So today's topic, as you may know it, Theatre just came out a few days ago, and there's of course the guide. I'll leave the link down to the description if you do want to go check it out. But we just got a new brilliant blessing in the form of Rimegrass. So Rimegrass essentially is Cryo and Dendro, and obviously they don't react, right? If you've done Theatre, maybe you knew a few things, but if you haven't, let me just go over my test notes and talk about why this could actually be an interesting point for Genshin, and how maybe any aspiring Hoyo devs might be watching this video right now. You probably know what this could mean for the future of Genshin. So I did some minor tests, and I think I made a mistake in the guide where I mentioned that this reaction or this blessing will help in the Overseer device, but it actually doesn't apply Cryo at all. So let me just briefly explain what it does. So essentially, whenever you apply Cryo and Dendro both on the enemy, both auras are on the enemy, and you pick at least the origin buff, the level 1 buff in the theatre, it will summon this thorn, this small little thorn thing with a small range, and it will essentially do both Cryo and Dendro damage simultaneously. However, the most interesting part about this reaction is that the blessing itself doesn't actually apply any element, nor does it do any sort of effect on the existing aura, which means you won't be getting aggravates, you won't be getting superconducts, and you won't be getting anything. It'll just be there to do damage. Well, you may think about it, well, maybe you might think it's stupid or it's weird, but then given how the activation condition worked, I would say this is pretty well thought out, because that means if it was to apply Dendro and Cryo consistently, it would simply be the same as a lot of the other reactions and a lot of the other blessings that we have currently right now. And just triggering Dendro and Cryo once would already kind of just make it spawn the second thorn, which will essentially perpetuate itself endlessly. Which, to be fair, yeah, it's very well balanced. Now, as for the other test notes, right? So when you get the level 2 buff, you actually, one of the path I believe, you actually get the thorn to convert. So what happens is that whenever you apply Electro within the range of the thorn to an enemy, of course, it will essentially convert to an Electro version of the thorn. One version will turn into a buff totem, the other version will simply just completely change to Electro, and of course just do damage. And of course this thorn also shares the same property that it doesn't apply Electro, so it cannot trigger, aggravate, or quicken in any way. Now the damage itself is not really that much of note. Other than that, there's not really much I've discovered. The interesting part about this reaction, we'll jump over that in the next topic by comparing it with other reactions we have in the game right now. So if you've been around the game for a while, you probably know all these different reactions. I'll just give it a list. Like we have Vaporize and Melt. They're amplifying reactions where they basically amplify the damage of the element that caused the reaction. So like forward and reverse vape, or forward and reverse melt, where like you apply pyro on top of cryo, you get a forward melt, so you get the 2x multiplier, and then if you apply vice versa, it's 1.5. Vaporize hydro is stronger element here, so hydro and pyro you get 2x, blah 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 blah. All the numbers get affected by elemental mastery. And as for all the other reactions, there are essentially transformative reactions like Swirl or Electro-Charged, Superconduct Overloaded, Brimeburgeon, the list goes on and on. We don't count Crystallize. Crystallize is a little bit of a different part, but maybe it's considered transformative, I'm not too sure. And transformative reactions essentially change into something else completely. Like Swirl, basically if it's a reaction that can only trigger when you apply it on any underlying Pyro, Hydro, Electro, Cryo, or as we like to call it in the community, PHEC, or FEC, or however you want to pronounce it, it essentially does an AoE damage of one of these 4 elements, right? Which somewhat helps with application. Electro-Charge is one of the more interesting ones, where it acts like Beidou's Burst, doing a mini taser, and if it triggers on a small enemy, it actually causes a minor stagger. And of course, there's the Electro-Hydro coexistence, but we'll talk about that in the later part. And then we have Superconduct. It's actually a cryo explosion. I didn't even know this until I actually looked it up. Of course, aside from the physical red shred, but physical is dead. And then Overloaded with the annoying stagger, but it's only viable thanks to Chevrolet. And did you know that the damage itself, Overloaded damage, is considered AoE Pyro, so it will end up being a bit helpful for, say, like the current Lava Dragon statue. Now, the closest similarity in terms of interestingness between Rimegrass is probably Electro-Charged. because Electro-Charge has both Electro and Hydro, because whenever you apply both the elements, before Electro-Charge actually triggers, they actually coexist for a brief moment. So what this means is that you can actually apply other elements that can react with both Hydro and Electro to create a whole new set of reactions. Like if you apply Pyro on top of Electro-Charge, you get vaped and overloaded at the same time. This creates, I think, one of the more funny meme themes of Kokomi that are known as Soup, where you basically take the advantage of the interaction between Swirl as well as Electro-Charge, and then of course Shangling of Pyro on top of that element. So what you'll end up doing is that because you're taking advantage of Sucrose applying Swirl to Goba, thus triggering the Pyro Swirl, and then that Pyro Swirl can react to the Electro-Charge aura on the enemy, you get like rainbow colors. Not only do you get to swirl Pyro on Goba, you also swirl Electro and I believe Hydro, and then when you swirl the Pyro will also cause it to trigger both Vaporize and Overloaded. So it's just a whole mess of colors. There's so many things on your screen. It's a very decent team, but it's very hard to play, and only a select few can actually enjoy playing this team. I haven't played this team for a while, so it is pretty fun while it lasted. While the other reaction we can talk about is Burning. So Burning on its own is not really that great, but it is viable due to how the aura interacts. So the Burning aura itself acts similar to Pyro, but of course they're not exactly the same thing. This interaction is very useful for reverse melt teams, where obviously the main DPS is going to be Cryo, and the team has a very weak Pyro application. So the reason why is that whenever you trigger any reaction on a Burning aura, it simply weakens and reverts back to a weak Pyro aura, thus somewhat pseudo-maintaining that weak Pyro that you have. The reaction I'm about to talk about later, this Dendro is being used to preserve the Pyro aura to ensure that you don't mess up the reaction and that your Cryo DPS can consistently trigger melt. Now, Rimegrass, Cryo and Dendro also has a lot of interesting reactions before the Blessing. Both of them can coexist without affecting each other, and this created a whole new team which is related to Burning called Fridge teams. Now, why is it called Fridge? I don't know, don't ask me. What exactly is a Fridge team? Fridge utilizes the fact that both auras can actually coexist, and of course the elemental gauge theory, which I'm not going to explain, and they use this interaction to maximize the Dendro reactions. So essentially, in simpler words, elemental gauge theory, think of it as like a bar. Whenever you apply an element, it fills up a bar that has a timer. Whenever you apply a separate element that can cause a reaction, it basically sees how strong these elements are. So like let's say one element has more units than the other, then of course it will consume all the aura, creating a reaction, so it leaves nothing left. And I'm not going to explain too much, so the rest is history. But what's interesting is that whenever both Cryo and Dendro exist, if you apply another element like say Hydro, it will actually weaken the Cryo aura first before it reaches the Dendro. So you still retain a certain amount of, like a weak amount of Dendro aura on top of it, and this interaction led to the creation of Hyperfridge. Now you know what Fridge is? Hyperfridge is exactly what you think it is. It is essentially Hyperbloom with Fridge. Similar to Reverse Melt, this team allows weaker Hydro application to shine by preserving the Dendro aura Cryo. So theoretically, this allows more bloom codes to be generated while preserving the Dendro aura. So one of the better examples that I've seen would be, instead of running like Nahida Singchukuki with Fischl, you basically run Keia as the last unit instead. Or before Rise, they even got Escoffier. Or if you don't want to run Reverse Melt because you don't have the right reactions or characters, you can run Hyperbloom in, you can basically run Rise in a Hyperbloom team. And that actually works kind of well. So, what does all this really mean? Now let's talk about the next part, the Rimegrass Blessing, and how this theater is actually really well done, and Hoyo actually did cook. So Rimegrass was designed around Electro, and it's very likely that we will not see this Dendro Cryo elements in the theater unless the third element is Electro. Now let me show you what I mean by showing you this infographic that I made for the theater guide. So if y'all can see this perfectly fine, you can see here, these are all the different descriptions. If you want to go check out the theater guide, I'll leave it right there. Of course, I also do have the Google Docs. Go check out the theater video in the description if you do want to read it up with more detail. So why I say that is because if you look at the top half, right, Inceptive Electrovine, this, this part, or rather both level 2 buffs of the Rimegrass thing requires you to apply Electro in the Thorn Ring. So if you think about it logically, if they put Cryo and Dendro in the theater, and they don't put Electro as a third element, which means you will never get past level 2. Well, I mean, you can get past level 2, but if you notice all the other buffs on later down the line, level 3, level 4, all of them want Electro. Like Apex Thorn Sprawl. If the Electro Thorn hits an enemy, you make them lose 30% Electro resistance. Or Thorn Spike, which buffs the Thorn Electro damage. This one is a bit of an exception, where actually no, you can't even go to this far because all these buffs cannot exist, or all these blessings cannot exist if you cannot even apply Electro on the enemy. So I don't know if this is intended. Very likely this is probably intentional, and that's my conspiracy theory on why I feel like we will not see a Dendro Cryo Theatre outside of having Theatre as a third element. But I think that's also a pretty cool thing because it leads to a lot of interactions. Like let's say if we were to look at the other two buffs, let's say Catalyze, right? So Catalyze, the Catalyze buffs are all pretty straightforward. You trigger Quicken, Aggravate, or Spread, you get like AoE Dendro damage, and then all the other options do a bit of Red Shred, a bit of AoE Electro, AoE Dendro, and it's like whatever. I think one part you can go on the one that basically buffs your external damage from the Electro, then the other half is like personal buffing stuff, like you get like additional flat damage for the AoE Dendro from here, or this one like Apex Abundance, where when Vigorous Nexus hits the enemy from applying Quicken, Aggravate, or Spread, you create a field which basically buffs your Electro and Dendro damage bonus. This is not to say the most like good buff. It's not really that great. I think at best the nice for AoE Dendro and maybe the buff from Apex Abundance, but other than that, the rest is pretty like just a bit of Red Shred, so it's nothing special. What's interesting is that Rimegrass also works really well with Superconduct. Because if we look at Superconduct, right, as long as you apply Superconduct on an enemy, they lose both physical, well by the default reaction, even more physical resistance, as well as cryo resistance. What makes this really good is the fact that I think Rimegrass somewhere, it doesn't really have any sort of red shredding or cryo. However, the level 1 of Rimegrass is really good. You just apply both elements on the enemy, they enter a state, and then you just get like, you do additional like cryo and dendro damage, which is just straight up insane. And then this one, if you go for the buff range, this one becomes even stronger. First, you go from receiving damage bonus for your character, and then from level 2, the enemies take even more, not just cryo and dendro, if you see right here, it's also electro, cryo, and dendro, so 3 elements. And then if you go for the level 4 buff after evolution, Apex Frosthorn. Each thorn you summon or converted into electro gets 22.5% additional damage bonus for this, which means the enemy can take up to a maximum of 135% more electro, cryo, and dendro damage on top of this additional damage bonus from level 1. And then you pair that up together with Superconduct. Superconduct, you mega buff cryo even more by having some form of red shred. And I believe Origin also enhances that red shred, and I don't think the level 4 for Superconduct is generally too worth it, so it's not really that great. But the fact that you can pair up all 3 of these buffs together to create such a synergistic blessing as well as like team really opens up a whole new potential. What I'm trying to get here is essentially this. It's possible to make teams consisting of cryo, electro, and dendro, or maybe superconduct, without requiring what I like to call the Chevreau or Escoffier approach. Rather than releasing units that are straight up press 2 buttons and the enemy loses a lot of resistance and your characters get omega buff and 3 billion damage bonus, they could simply fix these bad reactions by making them do something. Like, obviously, Skirk is something that's going to be coming up quite soon. By the time of the recording this video, tomorrow would be the live stream, so there'll be the fully official reveal of a kid. And there's a lot of controversy about how she's basically not that great or not omega hyper super strong Malvuika level without Escoffier. Now, a lot of the problem that I think we know this stems to is the fact that freeze isn't a great reaction. So to close things off, I think Hoyo would benefit a lot if they were to add this Rimegrass reaction to Genshin, but rather than taking the blessing directly from whatever Theatre has, because this is clearly made for Theatre, if they're lazy they could just copy paste. I think what they could do is they could make it so that whenever you run a Cryo and Dendro team, you don't exactly like have to worry too much about reactions. However, just applying Cryo and Dendro might provide benefits for Electro, Cryo, as well as Dendro. Then maybe you can have more team variety. Maybe the meta will become even more varied instead of relying on this specific 4-star or this specific 5-star unit in order to make that character or team good. So I think in terms of my perspective, this is a very cool blessing. I wish it was... Honestly, I think it's fine. I think they could just copy-paste this part into the game And I think the meta would change drastically. Maybe not as crazy, but at the very least, we will have more potential for what's to come. And maybe we'll have more new reactions in the future. I don't know, maybe a Nemo and Geo will finally react where it doesn't do damage, but it does something fun. You never know. I really want Hoyo to cook to see what they can make, because I'm pretty sure they have very talented people there, and I'm very sure they can make something if they actually tried and if they cared. But we'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, what do you guys think about the reaction? If you want to share your thoughts on what this could mean for the future of Genshin Impact, or at least share your thoughts on all the topics that I've mentioned here today, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. And if you're interested to see me talk about more of these kind of things, where maybe I'll try to write the script even better this time so I don't spend too much time ranting or yapping or going too long, just let me know down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed the video and at least found this informative, give it a like. If you want me to do more, of course, let me know down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more of this type of content, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, I think that's it for now. And see you guys in the live stream, or maybe after the live stream, by the time this video comes out. And hopefully after this video is done, I'll get the Imaginarium Theatre Advanced Guide out by then. Other than that, I wish you all a great time ahead of you. And that's it for now. This is Ethereal, signing off. Peace out.